Pruning fruit trees improves yield and quality. It's been going on since the year dot. Dad's side of the family in Italy were experts at pruning things like grapes and olives, while the early Tasmanian pioneers on Mum's side had to grow most of what they ate themselves, so they were very adept pruners too. Pruning gives me a connection to the past and makes me feel like I belong to an important tradition. And I just like chopping things. Traditionally, winter's been the time to prune your fruit trees. By pruning a plant when it's dormant, you're encouraging growth the next season. And it can be a great way of reducing your crop, which means the quality will be better. But today, I'm doing summer pruning, which does the opposite. It actually inhibits growth and can promote more flowers and therefore fruit. And summer's a great time to be pruning your established stone fruit trees to keep them to shape and size, which makes netting and picking that much easier. And the time to do it is after they've finished fruiting. And in the case of this greengage plum, that's now. The first thing I like to do is remove the suckers. Now, a sucker is a response by the tree to damage to its roots, usually by digging. I like to remove them so I can get in under the tree, but more importantly, if these were left on, they draw nutrient from the tree and end up smothering it, and they're not going to form good fruit. So they've got to go. Now, when you're cutting them off, make sure you go as low as possible to the ground and make a clean cut. Don't be tempted to grub them out, because what this is going to do, it's going to damage the roots further, meaning you're going to get more suckers next season. The next thing to do is remove any dead, diseased or damaged wood. I'm happy to say that this tree's okay. And after that, go for any branches that are scraping along the ground so you can get in and mulch underneath the tree. But before you go for the guts of the tree, you need to know what a fruiting spur is. That's one there. It's that rosette of a collection of buds. That's where the fruit will form. Now, on a Japanese plum, fruit forms on first to third-year-old spurs, so you've got a bit of wiggle room with them. But on a European plum like this, they form on second to third-year-old spurs, so you need to make sure that you don't remove too many of them. Now to the inside of the tree. If these inward-facing branches were left, they'd fill this space, reducing airflow, making the tree more prone to pest and disease attack. Also, by removing them, I'm preserving this beautiful goblet shape of outward-facing limbs that the tree already has. The next thing I like to do is shorten everything. If you think of a branch like a piece of irrigation pipe flowing water and sap, that's a long way for it to go. Now, this season, it's pushed energy out and created this bit of extension growth that's formed leaves and produced energy to feed this crop along here. But if I left it on, it'd weigh the whole branch down, probably snapping it next season. So I'm going to control it and take it off. Now, the reason I've cut here is because I've got a nice little bit of growth there that the tree will feed next season, and it'll create leaves, and then it will support the crop that's on the branch. And then the year after, I can come through and cut to this point. And by this stage, it will have 2 to 3-year-old spurs that'll bear fruit. And this way, I'm keeping the plant nice and compact, but still productive. Now, I'll let you in on a little tip the pros use. The sap is flowing down this fairly thin branch, about the thickness of a pencil, and it's splitting up and going down to 2 branches that are laden with spurs. There's in excess of about 30 spurs, which could potentially produce about 50 fruit. So, to thin that out, I'm going to take off one of these branches. I'm going to singulate them. And that way, I'm halving the amount of spurs and I'm redirecting the energy into that branch, meaning I'll get bigger and better fruit. Now I'm going to singulate and shorten the whole tree. Blunt tools will damage your plant tissue, increasing the opportunity for diseases to take hold. So make sure your blades are keenly honed and clean them between trees with some methylated spirits or bleach to prevent the spread of existing pests and diseases. It may seem a little bit drastic, but these long verticals here are this year's growth, so I can cut them back quite hard without harming the tree. Inward growing branches like this one, just going to congest things, so they can go. And that one. Well, there you go. The greengage has had its trim. These principles apply to all your stonefruit trees: cherries, almonds, nectarines, peaches, and apricots. But with apricots, it's vitally important that you get the timing right. And that timing is, as you pick the last fruit off, go in with your cutters. Otherwise, you can adversely affect the health of the tree. Pruning's not that complicated, and it's so very satisfying. And I reckon it brings us a little bit closer to our forebears. But remember, the one tree you can't prune is your family tree. Ciao for now.